The Buddha's teachings reach far beyond meditation, cushions and monastic robes. They extend deeply into the everyday lives of laypeople, including how they relate to work, money, and wealth. While the Buddha never positioned himself as a financial advisor in the conventional sense, his insights into the human mind, desire, and suffering provide a profound ethical framework for understanding and engaging with money. In an age obsessed with material success, his teachings still resonate as both a guide and a challenge, urging individuals not to reject money outright, but to cultivate wisdom, compassion, and detachment in its pursuit and use. To understand how the Buddha approached money, one must first grasp a central idea that recurs throughout his teachings: money, like all things in the material world, is impermanent and cannot provide lasting happiness. This notion is rooted in the Buddhist doctrine of anicca, impermanence, which reminds us that everything we cling to will eventually change, decay, or disappear. Yet despite this, humans often develop strong attachments to wealth, seeing it as a source of security, status, or self-worth. This attachment, tanha, or craving, is what the Buddha identified as a primary cause of suffering. When people become ensnared by desire, they enter a cycle of dissatisfaction and restlessness, always wanting more, never feeling complete. The Buddha did not advocate for the total renunciation of money by everyone. While monks and nuns were required to give up personal possessions and live through the generosity of others, laypeople were encouraged to earn a living and manage their resources wisely. In the Digajanu Sutta, the Buddha laid out practical advice for householders, addressing how one can live a good life while engaging with wealth. He suggested that people should work diligently and honestly, safeguard their earnings, associate with wise and moral companions, and live within their means. This was not simply financial advice, it was ethical living in action. By working skillfully and mindfully, one not only sustains themselves, but avoids exploitation and harm to others. The emphasis on ethical livelihood is a cornerstone of Buddhist thought. One of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path is right livelihood, meaning a way of earning a living that does not involve deceit, harm, or unethical practices. The Buddha was clear in naming certain trades that should be avoided, including dealing in weapons, intoxicants, poisons, human beings, or the slaughter of animals. These professions, he taught, create suffering not just for others, but for the one engaging in them. Thus, wealth that comes from harming others is considered tainted. It feeds delusion and binds the mind further in greed and ignorance. Even when wealth is earned ethically, the Buddha warned of its seductive power. Money can easily become a source of pride, attachment, or fear. People may begin to measure their worth by their bank balance, or live in constant anxiety about losing what they have accumulated. In this way, money becomes a mental trap. The Buddha urged his followers to see wealth for what it is: a means to support life, not a measure of it. He used vivid analogies to illustrate the danger of clinging to possessions. Just as a person drinking salt water becomes thirstier the more they drink, so too does craving wealth lead not to satisfaction, but to deeper hunger. Instead of clinging to wealth, the Buddha encouraged generosity as a key practice for spiritual and emotional liberation. Generosity is not merely about giving material things. It is an act that weakens self-centeredness and expands compassion. In giving, one loosens the grip of ego and opens the heart to others. Whether it is offering food to a hungry person, donating to a temple, or simply sharing time and presence, generosity helps shift focus from self to community. It is no surprise that dana is considered the first of the 10 paramitas, or perfections, that a bodhisattva must cultivate. It is the beginning of a path that ultimately leads to enlightenment. Importantly, generosity is not reserved for the wealthy. The Buddha often praised those who gave despite having little. In one story, a poor woman, who offered a single piece of fruit, was praised for the purity of her intention. It was not the size of the gift that mattered, but the sincerity behind it. This reinforces a key point in Buddhist economics. Wealth is not defined solely by what one possesses, but also by one's capacity to give, to care, and to let go. Equally significant in the Buddha's teachings is the idea of stewardship. Money, like any form of power, comes with responsibility. The Buddha encouraged laypeople to divide their income wisely. A portion for daily needs, a portion for saving or investment, a portion for generosity, and a portion for taxes or societal contributions. This holistic approach to wealth management reflects a broader vision of balance. Financial health is not about accumulation but sustainability and harmony, both personal and social. The Buddha also recognized that financial stress can be a source of great suffering. In the Sigalovada Sutta, which reads like a guide for householders, he advised young people to avoid gambling, laziness, and harmful friendships, behaviors that could lead to poverty and ruin. He encouraged a disciplined and mindful lifestyle, where one's financial decisions align with ethical values and long-term well-being. This reflects a realism in the Buddha's teachings. He understood the practicalities of life and the role that money plays in supporting health, family, and society. But he was also deeply aware of how easily money could become a distraction, or even a poison when it becomes the primary pursuit of life. For monastics, the relationship with money is intentionally different. Buddhist monks and nuns take vows of poverty, not because money is evil, but because renouncing it simplifies their lives and helps them focus entirely on spiritual development. This practice is not meant to be a model for all, but a living reminder to society of the possibility of life beyond materialism. The monastic community relies on laypeople for sustenance, and in turn, offers teachings and spiritual support. This reciprocal relationship builds a bridge between the spiritual and the material, and reinforces the communal values at the heart of Buddhist ethics. Modern interpretations of the Buddha's economic teachings vary, but many Buddhist thinkers and economists have attempted to adapt these ancient insights to contemporary life. The late E.F. Schumacher, author of Small is Beautiful, drew heavily on Buddhist ideas when he proposed an economics that values human well-being over profit, simplicity over consumption, and community over competition. He imagined a world in which work was not a burden, but a source of dignity and connection. In Buddhist economics, success is not measured by GDP, but by the reduction of suffering and the cultivation of mindfulness, generosity, and ethical conduct. In our current world, where financial anxiety, inequality, and consumerism dominate so much of public discourse, the Buddha's voice offers a counterbalance. He does not suggest that we abandon money, but that we examine our relationship with it carefully. Do we see money as a tool, or has it become a goal in itself? Do we use it to support life, or do we sacrifice life to obtain it? Are we building wealth out of fear and greed, or out of a genuine desire to support ourselves and serve others? These questions are as relevant today as they were in the Buddha's time. He taught that the path to peace lies not in rejecting the world, but in living in it with awareness, compassion, and integrity. When we view money through the lens of the Dhamma, we find that it is not a hindrance to spiritual life, but a mirror reflecting our values, our fears, and our aspirations. Used wisely, money can be a source of generosity, joy, and freedom. Used blindly, it becomes yet another link in the chain of suffering. The Buddha's teachings are timeless not because they are ancient, but because they speak to the core of the human experience. When it comes to money, this is especially true. Money plays a major role in our lives. Yet we often don't stop to ask ourselves why we chase it, what we're truly seeking through it, and whether it ever really satisfies us. The Buddha's wisdom invites us to sit with those questions not with guilt or shame, but with curiosity and clarity. To truly understand the Buddha's perspective, we can look at a simple and common example. A person working a regular job, trying to earn enough to support their family. Maybe pay off debt, and hopefully have a little extra for enjoyment. This is an honest and noble life, and the Buddha never condemned it. In fact, he understood that laypeople had responsibilities, and that wealth could play a helpful and necessary role. What he warned against was forgetting why we do what we do. If our days are consumed by work that drains us, or if we're constantly anxious about keeping up with others, or if we begin to define our self-worth by our income, then we've slipped into the kind of suffering he came to help us overcome. One of the most powerful teachings the Buddha offered to laypeople is the idea of samajivakata, or balanced livelihood. This doesn't just mean choosing a job that doesn't harm others, it means living within your means. Spending wisely, saving carefully, and using money to bring peace rather than stress. Think of someone who earns a modest salary but spends mindfully. They don't buy things just to impress others. They're content with enough. Maybe they take joy in cooking meals at home, fixing things instead of replacing them, and helping a neighbor when they can. Compare that to someone who earns twice as much but is always chasing the next upgrade. Always in debt, always dissatisfied. Who is wealthier in spirit? Another important concept from the Buddha's teachings is the idea of protection. This refers to taking care of the wealth you do have, not out of fear, but with responsibility. It's about not being careless, not wasting resources, and preparing for hard times. Without becoming obsessed with security, the Buddha wasn't against saving or planning. In fact, he encouraged people to think ahead. What he warned against was hoarding wealth, or guarding it so tightly that it becomes a burden. Money should serve your life, not the other way around. Let's take the example of a farmer. Imagine a person who grows enough crops to feed their family, and sell the extra at the market. Each year, they set aside a portion of the harvest in case of drought. They use some of the income to fix their home and buy school books for their children. And they always keep something aside to help neighbors when needed. This is a life in harmony with Buddhist values. The farmer earns honestly, spends wisely, prepares for the future, and shares when they can. Even without riches, their life is rich in meaning and connection. Contrast this with someone who wins a lottery and suddenly has millions. Without mindfulness, that money can quickly become a source of confusion, temptation, and even suffering. We've all heard stories of lottery winners who ended up worse off than before. Why? Because the money wasn't the problem, it was the craving, the ego, and the illusion of control that came with it. The Buddha taught that the mind is what creates suffering, not the money itself. If your mind is full of fear, envy, or greed, no amount of money will quiet it. But if your mind is calm and compassionate, even a small amount can bring contentment. That's why dana, or generosity, is so central to Buddhist practice. Giving is a way of loosening the grip that money can have on us. It's not about giving everything away, but about letting go of the idea that we must hold tightly to feel secure. The Buddha praised those who gave joyfully, even if they had little. He told the story of a poor man who gave his last meal to a hungry traveler not because he had extra, but because his heart was open. That act, the Buddha said, generated more merit than gold given with a closed fist. You might ask, but what if I don't have enough to give? Generosity isn't just about money. It can be your time, your attention, your kindness. When we share what we have, no matter how small, we train ourselves to see abundance rather than lack. This changes our relationship with wealth. We stop seeing others as competitors or threats, and we start recognizing our shared humanity. The Buddha saw this shift not just as a moral good, but as a path to freedom. When we're no longer trapped by comparison or fear, we're free to live fully. Even in business or entrepreneurship, these teachings apply. A shopkeeper who sells goods at fair prices, treats customers with respect, pays employees fairly, and reinvests in their community is practicing right livelihood. They may not become billionaires, but their business becomes a force of good in the world. They sleep well at night. They are loved and trusted. In Buddhist terms, they are building merit that will serve them far beyond this life. Now consider the flip side. Imagine a person who becomes wealthy by exploiting workers, cutting corners, or selling harmful products. Even if they are admired by society, the Buddha would say they are building suffering for themselves and others. Wealth built on harm is unstable. It brings fear, guilt, and karmic consequences. This doesn't mean such people are beyond redemption, but it means that true success in Buddhism is measured by the quality of one's actions, not the size of one's fortune. Another often overlooked aspect of the Buddha's teachings about money is the role of community. In the early Buddhist Sangha, monks and nuns relied entirely on alms. This wasn't meant to create dependency, but interdependence. Laypeople gave food and robes, and in return received teachings, blessings, and guidance. This created a cycle of generosity and mutual respect. In many Asian countries, this tradition continues today. Even a poor villager might cook a meal for monks, believing that spiritual nourishment flows in both directions. This spirit of mutual care can be applied even in modern, secular communities. Imagine a neighborhood where people share tools, grow food together, help each other with childcare, and look out for the elderly. Such communities often thrive even without much money. Why? Because wealth is not only what's in your bank account, it's the strength of your relationships, the depth of your gratitude, and the kindness you give and receive each day. Of course, living this way takes practice. The world around us is constantly urging us to buy more, own more, be more. Advertisements tell us that happiness is one purchase away. Social media feeds fuel comparison. We are told that success looks like luxury, fame, and leisure. But the Buddha invites us to look deeper. What do we really want? Is it the thing, or the feeling we think it will bring? Is it the car, or the freedom we associate with it? The house, or the sense of safety? The irony is that the more we chase those things through money alone, the more elusive they become. True freedom, the Buddha taught, doesn't come from owning everything, it comes from needing less. True security doesn't come from money in the bank, but from peace in the heart. True status comes not from impressing others, but from living with integrity. So what does all this mean for someone navigating today's world? It means that the Buddha's teachings on money are as practical now as they were 2,500 years ago. It means asking yourself honest questions. How do I earn my money? Does it align with my values? How do I spend it? Does it bring joy or stress? How do I share it? Am I contributing to others' well-being? Am I using my resources to support life, or to distract from it? There is no single answer, and the Buddha never gave rigid rules. He offered guidance and encouraged mindfulness. Each person must look at their own life, their own heart, and their own circumstances. But the general direction is clear: earn ethically, spend wisely, share generously, and above all, stay free from clinging. In the end, the Buddha's teachings on money are not about rejection, but about relationship. Money itself is neutral, it is how we earn, use, and relate to it that shapes our lives. Through mindfulness, ethical livelihood, wise spending, generosity, and contentment, we can turn money from a source of stress into a tool for peace. Whether we have much or little, the path remains the same: to live with integrity, to care for others, and to free ourselves from craving. In doing so, we discover a wealth that no amount of money can buy: a steady heart, a clear mind, and a life rooted in compassion. The Buddha did not ask us to escape the world but to live in it wisely. With each financial decision, we have the chance to walk that path, not toward more, but toward enough. Not toward ownership, but toward inner freedom. That is true wealth.